blockading this river. Reverend D.C. Kelley, Major, also chaplain for Force, and 300 men here. And it started on December 3rd, where they blockaded this river. But it's about a little over a quarter-mile walk down this path. So watch your step. I did not bring masks, but they're wonderful interpretive signs here. And you're going to hear about the moose, the ship, and the reindeer, and then the Oshapa, I think is how you pronounce it. And so watch your step, and we'll form up here. And none of you. Federal cavalry just now is moving down this Charlotte Pike. And the gunboats are firing, and that's what they're holding them off. That's slowing them down. I'm ready to deal, but the stone walls have nothing to do with that paradox. That way, but still they're good. Any idea why they're there? Property values. That's all it is. So something. I mean, they're on the. What I remember, they're on the top of the ridges. So it's not cavalry. It's not really what I'm talking about. Probably wasn't forested. No. Folks, where we're positioned, we're by land. I'm sorry, I have a bad habit. Sorry. Where we're positioned by land, we're only about 7 miles from Nashville. But by river, it's 18 miles from Nashville. And of course, Reverend D.C. Kelley comes in here with 300 men. That's the 3rd Tennessee Cav. And that's one of my great-grandfather was with him, and brought up 2 bullpups, parent guns, and fired on a transport, laden with all kind of things. I'm gonna explain to it down there, and I'll explain how they captured it, etc., etc. But then back and forth, there were about 8 fights here, going from the 3rd to the 8th of December, back and forth. And I'll explain how the river went down, whatever. But we're standing at what they call Kelley's Point. The England, not called England, the Great whatever, United Kingdom, Civil War Round Table, they donated money for these interpretive signs down here, and other round tables too. And they've done real well. So at this moment, it's about 1/3 of a mile. Easy walk. So let's walk this way. Right here, right here. Of course, the gun's facing this way.
So the transports are getting...
The prima donna. I remember because I knew it. I called a girlfriend.
Where are the Federals on land that are putting stuff on the transports?
Like Smith's come from Missouri, and then Stedman's is marching in from the East Chattanooga. But there are supplies coming in here, and transports, mules, horses, everything is coming in here. That's to blockade this river to keep things from going into Nashville.
But it's not going to affect them as far as food or anything.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But.
Okay. Let me get out of the way. Neosha. That's what it is.
Neosha, yeah.
Tom, when Thomas received his orders to be relieved, how did he?
He didn't get them. They were being done. Eckert was supposed to send them. He held it.
Who sent the orders? Grant?
Yes. I mean, we can do whatever. Yes.
Who was supposed to replace him? Schofield?
Yes. Logan was coming down. He was in Kentucky at Louisville, and Grant was going to come down himself.
So Grant signed the order?
Yes.
But Thomas never got it?
No, because Eckert held it. He thought he was going to be executed for it, and Stanton patted him on the shoulder. Because the first day it started the 15th, and it was a victory, blah, blah, blah.
Halleck had actually signed an order on the 10th for that, and Grant delayed that one.
Right. And Halleck didn't want it. He said, if you want it, I'll sign it. But Halleck didn't want to do this. And then Grant paused, waited, but it was Grant's call in the end, because he's commanded all the armies by now.
You know, that Halleck was pushing, and so was Lincoln, because Lincoln had said he's doing the same thing as McClellan and Rosecrans, dilly-dallying around.
That's just horrible how they treated him.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But I mean, Grant had pressure on him from up above him.
Yeah, but it was Grant's call.
Yeah, it had to be his call.
Yeah.
Who held up the order then? Who was that?
Eckert, Major T.C. Eckert. He's supposed to send that wire. He held it himself.
And where was he in the?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
But
He was in Washington.
yeah, he's going to send it here to relieve him.
And he just held the order.
Yep. That's pretty ballsy, isn't it?
It was the War Department and the Telegraph Office, so he's the one that,
So what made him do that? How did Eckert?
Yes, he just used his own initiative.
Yeah.
You know, in the military, if you're successful in disobey orders, you slide. You're usually fine. If you're not,
and he saw all the traffic that didn't think it was that fair either.
right.
Yeah, that was.
Okay, folks, this is the Cumberland River. Cumberland River here. And on December the 3rd, now this is the river that A.J. Smith's Corps is coming into Nashville. The leading division on November 30th arrives. And then they get through by the 2nd. On the 3rd, Major D.C. Kelley, also Reverend D.C. Kelley, with Forest Command, bring 300 men up here, 3rd Tennessee Cab, and 2 10-pound parrot guns, bull pups, they call them. And they bring them up here, and this first transport laden, it's on December 4th, transport laden with mules and men and such, and a lot of supplies coming up here, and they fire on it, they ground it, and they capture it. And they capture, I forget the amount of prisoners, 100 some odd, and about a couple hundred mules, something like that. But then a tin-clad comes up, I believe the Fair Play, and drives them off. And then after this, from December 3rd to December 8th, remember it gets cold on the 7th, starts raining and ice and such. Different ones come up here, including the Silver Lake, the Neosha, come up here, and they're firing. They drive those 2 guns off. Kelley came back with 2 more guns, as well as, so they have 4 guns here, and they effectively block this this river. The Neosha, I think that's December 7th, came up here, or the 6th, 7th, I believe, came up here, and 2 men were given, they were recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor, because one of those shells knocked the flagpole, broke the flagpole on the ship, and he goes up there and nails it to the ship. He's from England, by the way. I used to know their names. And there was another gentleman as well, 2 Congressional Medal of Honor recipients. The tin-clad, these tin-clads were coming up here firing them. They found all types of artillery. I'm not as familiar with naval things, so as I call it grape shot, but those big iron balls, a lot bigger than the normal artillery, were found all along these lines. I think we just walked by where a Confederate gun was in place here. They're coming up the river, and there's like 6 fights here until the 8th or 9th. So the river was, plus the weather helped them. Admiral Samuel Lee, a distant relative of Robert E. Lee, wanted to get up here, but the river was down and they couldn't get through here as well. So the weather and the guns blockaded this. And then the opening shots of the Battle of Nashville on December 15th started, where the gunboats came up here, and Richard Johnson's dismounted Cav Federal were moving down the pike, and these shells were going over their heads from the gunboats here, and they opened it up on December 15th. I might add, a lot of citizens are noted in the Battle of Nashville. We'll touch on Mary Bradford later, that's mentioned in Hood's official reports. And also this man named, it's not General, a citizen named Mark Cockrell. His photograph was on that interpretive sign. Mark Cockrell, he's 71 years old. And he's just rides out there in a horse and with the Confederates, and they all cheer him. He's an old man on a horse here as well. But they brought reinforcements here for D.C. Kelley in this opening deal. So they only had about 1,200 men. What brigade was that? Ector's Brigade. Ector's Brigade. So he's about 900 with the 300 the Tennessee Cav, about 1,200. They slowed down Richard Johnson for a long, long time. He didn't perform very well in this campaign. He was in the Atlanta campaign too. He performed not very well at all. And no one here on this group has been here, and I just wanted to show you this. That's a wonderful interpretive sign, having lithographs or photographs of these different gunboats that would describe that. And Reverend Kelley, who was very big in the Methodist Church after the war. He was a chaplain for Forrest as well, and would give those services that would bring the wrath of force when the kids were acting up, the boys in the command as well. There's Richard Johnson described what I noted, that he had a bad 2 days at the Battle of Nashville. You know, dismounted cav, do you think Forrest Command would go into battle with swords when they're dismount and then fight as infantry? No. Johnson had, you know, they had these cavalry boots on, they had these swords clanging and whatever, and use them as dismounted cav. They were not mounted. 9,000 of the 12,000 were mounted. Johnson's command were not, and they had a terrible 2 days here. Terrible 2 days. He said that he captured whatever and drove them through. Absolutely not true. Ector's command and such moved east through Belmead and whatever to connect to that Hillsborough Road. But that was the opening shots and the gunboats firing over their heads on December 15th about 6 a.m. Because about 6 a.m. the same thing going on when we go to the east, Granbury's Lynette. That's where the USCTs, the blacks, are attacking in that opening thing. And again, Thomas's, both days, it's jab with your left, hit them with the right. Both days are going to be like that. And that jab to the left would be at the Louisville Road, the Granbury's Lynette. You're going to hit them with the right, crushing those redoubts on the Hillsborough Road. And but this shows again the Silver Lake, the Carondelet was here, the Fair Play, as I know, the Neosha were the 2 Congressional Medal of Honor recipients, and Kelley did a really, really good job here. Kelley's Point, this is called today. Very few come out here. Ed Mars has been here, but only twice. And the United Kingdom Civil War Roundtable helped with these signs. I think it notes, yeah, right there it notes that as well. And this is the most driving we'll do for today. I like this because you see nature. You don't hear traffic. We're going to drive through a lot of traffic and a lot of stuff with the Battle of Nashville and see cars and everything. But this is almost pristine. And there are trenches. I think we walked by where a cannon was in place. I saw that. I showed Clay, and I'll show that when we're walking back to your left. But take your time, take some photographs. There's a long drive to get here, but we're early on. But I wanted to show you this. It's very important. One of the few areas where you're not going to see a lot of traffic and stuff as well.
Tom, do you know which specific units drove off these people on the 15th, the Union Cavalry?
It was Ector's brigade, Texans and North Carolinians, and the 300 with the 3rd Tennessee Cav. And they slowed them down. They didn't drive them away, but slowed them down. And they had their swords, they're dismounted. They did a terrible job for hours on end. And then that Confederate command moved to the east to connect with the Hillsborough Road and such. And they ran right by the redoubts. They didn't do it well either afterwards. But nonetheless.
So then it was Johnson then eventually that was behind them?
Richard Johnson,
yeah.
Federal, and their dismounted cav here, Richard Johnson. But they were being pushed back. They did very, very little. They were behind a stone wall to the east, the Confederates, and they did a debacle there, Johnson's. He was not censored, but he did not well at all. But the open shots for the 15th. This is the far west of the Battle of Nashville. The far, far west. We're 14 miles from the Louisville Road to the Granbury's Lynette to the east. And so, huge, wide battlefield. I cannot do this all in chronological order because it's so wide and such. So, there's a 2-day battle, 15th and 16th, and we're going to try to do most of the 15th chronologically, but we are going to stop by that monument. We're going to do close, but it's going on at 6 a.m. with Stedman's, USCT's attacking that Granbury's Lynette. And then, of course, that big right hook, which will be hitting the redoubts of the Hillsborough Road to the west. And this is a far west of the battlefield, about 17 miles from Nashville by river, but only about 8 miles from Nashville by land, but 17 miles by river, that Cumberland River that flows right through here. Not that